Hey guys, welcome. So I've been wanting to do a Star Wars ranking video for a long time now, and now because The Acolyte is airing on Disney Plus and people are talking a lot about Star Wars, I figured this is the perfect time to do it. I will be doing a review of Acolyte. I'm just gonna, wait to finish all of the episodes first. I think I'm gonna be pissing a lot of people off with these rankings because I definitely have some hot takes. But let's get into it. It is what it is. So in last place, I got The Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker is probably one of the worst films I've seen. It is an incoherent mess of the film that just reeks of desperation, where the filmmakers are clearly trying to just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks narratively. As a result, the film just feels very contrived and forced and cringy to the point where it's laughable. From the return of Palpatine to how it actually ends the franchise, it's a very shallow film with zero thought put into it. And as a result, that's why I'll put this film last in my ranking without hesitation. It's a bad Star Wars film, and it's also just a bad film, period. Next, we got The Force Awakens. When people really rant about the sequel trilogy, which I sympathize with, a lot of fans really pour out their wrath onto The Last Jedi for the sins of the sequel trilogy. But for me, I put that blame on The Force Awakens personally. The Force Awakens really introduced a lot of the problems we have with the sequel trilogy by explicitly undoing the accomplishments of the characters in the original trilogy, where now we're back to the Empire versus the Rebels, but just under different names. The film explicitly makes Luke Skywalker into a loser who lost his new Jedi Order and now he's in self-exile. A lot of people blame The Last Jedi for that, but people forget that Han explicitly tells us that that is what has happened to Luke in The Force Awakens. And additionally, we're introduced to Rey. I think The Force Awakens really fails Rey as a character. It doesn't give her any adversity internally or externally to make her an interesting character. Besides her wanting to know about her parents, which, I mean, that's a goal, but it's not necessarily a conflict. We don't really see a conflict play out that challenges her both physically or mentally. And overall, the film I thought was just very disappointing as a sequel. The Force Awakens was way too concerned with relishing in nostalgia rather than trying to tell its own interesting story and new myths, the way that the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy did, respectively. Okay, then next we have Solo. Now, the way people talk about Force Awakens when they're defending it is how I feel about Solo personally, which is to say that Solo is an okay film. It's fun, it's entertaining, it's nothing great or original, but it's nothing bad either. I think Ron Howard did a good job making a fun heist film within Star Wars, and I think really in its art direction does a good job of showing off the criminal underworld. But it's not, yeah, but it's not really an original film. The cast is good. But beyond that, there's nothing much else to say about the film. It's a very unnecessary film, and a lot of people thought that about Solo, and they're right. Because even though the film isn't bad, it doesn't do anything to justify its own existence. And frankly, I really don't have any desire to rewatch this film anytime soon. Not a bad film, but it's whatever. Okay, next we got The Last Jedi. Yeah, so this one I think is really gonna piss people off because The Last Jedi is usually ranked dead last, if not second to last. And I do sympathize a lot with the hate that this film gets. Having said that, though, I think a lot of the problems you'll have with this movie are problems that are really inherited from The Force Awakens, which I already talked about before. Having said that, The Last Jedi definitely has faults that it's very culpable of, including really being irreverent with Luke Skywalker, making him into a joke. It was very off-putting. It really does come off as mean-spirited and snarky, which I feel is kind of present of all Rian Johnson's films. On top of that, the comedy I thought was just really bad in this movie and very off-putting. I still kind of enjoy certain aspects of The Last Jedi. I think the mise-en-scène and cinematography is very well done. It puts J.J. Abrams to shame. I also really credit Last Jedi for really developing Kylo Ren and making him into an actual interesting character. Whereas in The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren, which is an edgy emo kid that you're supposed to laugh at. Another hot take, I don't mind its deconstructive nature, especially after The Force Awakens. I thought it was kind of refreshing and different, and it was appropriate for a franchise that was, this old with this much iconography. Now, was it executed well? Absolutely not. But I still think it was interesting to watch and kind of entertaining in some respects. Absolutely. So as a result, I can't really bring myself to rank The Last Jedi last or like even second to last. I do think it's the best of the sequel trilogy in terms of direction, and it's more interesting than Solo for sure, even if it's not really for the best. So that's where I would put The Last Jedi. Next, we got Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones has probably the worst dialogue, the worst acting, the worst romance. in film history. But the film is redeemed by, I think, Obi-Wan's story, him trying to unravel this conspiracy within the Republic, facing off against Jango Fett, and the great Christopher Lee, who plays Count Dooku, who's a highlight of the film. And the film also introduces us to the clones and the Clone Wars, and when we get to that part of the film, I think that was really cool, very well directed, with really what feels like guerrilla style of filmmaking in the world of Star Wars, which I like. I thought that was really cool. That when I rewatched Attack of the Clones, I was kind of caught off guard how much Lucas plays with the visuals and cinematography. So yeah, Attack of the Clones, maybe not a good movie, but it's a movie with soul and creativity, so I want to give a lot of respect for that. All right, after that, we got Return of the Jedi. I don't know how people are going to react to how I ranked this movie because I see a lot of respect for Return of the Jedi, but I see a lot of disrespect online. And I have a love and hate relationship with this movie. On one hand, I love the beginning at Jabba's palace. It's so fun, really exciting. And the ending of this film, you know, the whole Death Star climax with Luke, Vader, and the Emperor, and just the very last shots, it's an emotional triumph, made even more so by the prequels. Having said all that, everything in the middle is such a drag to go through and watch. The overall direction, the execution of like everything on Endor, which is, you know, a lot of the film takes place on Endor, it just feels very cheap and watered down, in my opinion. You know, especially after everything we've seen from the first two films. And I respect Lucas for trying to do a commentary on Vietnam with the Ewoks, and the imagery is clear with that. But the execution is still very dull, in my opinion. The way I would classify Return of Jedi is that it has high highs in the franchise, but low lows as well in some respects. And then after that, we got The Phantom Menace. Now, The Phantom Menace, I just think straight up is a good movie. My only critique of The Phantom Menace is that the acting gets pretty bad at times. And I guess Jar Jar, but Jar Jar has grown on me in the years since, personally. But the art direction is fantastic in this movie. I think George Lucas does an amazing job combining practical effects and CGI to bring us essentially a space Roman Republic that feels very classical. And that's really cool to see compared to the original trilogy, you know, which in Light of the Empire, everything is very dirty, run down, and in decay. The lightsaber battles, amazing. The soundtrack, the best in the franchise. And I thought the political story that was initiated within the Phantom Menace, I thought was really engaging, you know, about how a government manufactures a crisis to gain more power. I thought that was kind of some heavy stuff for Star Wars. Next, we got Rogue One, the best Disney Star Wars film by country mile. It's not even close. It's edgy in concept. I've heard some people criticize the movie for that, but I think that's the movie's strength. Just to give us something different, you know, show us the Galactic Civil War, but from the perspective of these random soldiers, to the point where it feels less space opera and much more like just a gritty war film. The cinematography, it's probably the second best in the franchise, honestly. I'll get to which one has the best cinematography. But yeah, Rogue One, it's amazing, but it's still not close to my top three. So number three is Star Wars A New Hope, the first one that started it all. But yeah, A New Hope, I think it's just pure visual storytelling on George Lucas's end. You know, using specifically mise-en-scène and blocking to show power dynamics and mythic themes that Lucas cared deeply much about. The script is also perfect in terms of like structure, like really like the way the film does rising tension, character development, and having moments feel earned. It's really something that you should learn from. Where if anyone is out there who wants to really learn how to write a good script, you know, before you get experimental, you gotta really know the basics, and to really master the basics, study Star Wars: A New Hope because it's perfect in that regard. Next, we got Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith. I mean, I was kind of torn with Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. I kind of want to like maybe switch it, but personally, I just enjoy Revenge of the Sith more. It's peak space opera in terms of script and aesthetics, really Shakespearean. Such iconic music and moments and dialogue, both that are like really fun and funny, but also dark without pulling its punches. Really executing on the ideas planted in Phantom Menace about how morals can decay. You see that through both the Republic and through Anakin as a character, having good intentions, but of course the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And both its message and how, you know, very fun and engaging the film is, and how tightly it's made in terms of pacing. I would rank Revenge of the Sith second, but it's very close. Now, first, I guess to no one's surprise, is Empire Strikes Back. I mean, I wanted to have like a hot take and like maybe put something else in first, but the truth is, Empire Strikes Back just is the best Star Wars film. It's also just a classic piece of American cinema, honestly, which you can also say about Star Wars: A New Hope as well. But I think Empire Strikes Back maybe more so. The cinematography, the lighting, the use of colors is perfect in this movie to really get into the heads of these characters. It's a lot more character driven, a lot more spiritual in many respects. And what's cool about it being a sequel, the substance of the movie is not trying to just be a New Hope but bigger, the more the same old that you expected. Instead, it takes what you love about the first Star Wars film and says, okay, let's go more into depth. Let's really dissect this. And that's really what makes Empire Strikes Back so special. It's concern of characters, but then also using the visuals to really get into the heads of these characters. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm very curious how you all agree or disagree. What's your favorite Star Wars film, or maybe what's your least favorite? Make sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe. I'll see you next time.